What if something ancient and deadly was waiting for you, hidden right inside the place you keep your most personal things? One simple discovery will pull the end of your life straight from the future into your present. This story will make you check every corner of your own space before you ever touch something you don't understand. During a high school basketball game, the Wolves are losing to the Stalkers. With only 44 seconds remaining on the clock, the coach instructs Dean to grab the ball and send it to Mason. The goal is to score just enough points to secure a win. The team follows the plan perfectly, and soon Mason earns 2 points. But he gets distracted when he spots a burned man sitting in the crowd. The game resumes, and Dean passes the ball to Mason once again. At the very last second, Mason shoots the ball. That's when he watches in horror as the burned man suddenly appears right in front of him, reaching out with a blackened hand. The ball goes through the hoop, giving the Wolves the victory. Mason is immediately swarmed by his ecstatic teammates, but Mason is terrified and sprints toward the locker room. As he opens his locker, he notices goosebumps rising on his arms. He frantically tosses out random items until only a strange artifact remains. A voice whispers his name, and Mason starts searching for a weight. Suddenly, the burned man enters the room. Mason begs for more time, then slams the weight onto the artifact, smashing it into pieces. He looks at the door and feels relief when his teammates walk in. Later, while showering, Mason hears a noise and looks down. Black smoke curls beneath his feet. He spins around, and the burned man grabs him by the neck. The creature forces a hand down Mason's throat and sets him on fire from the inside. His teammates hear his screams and rush to the showers. They find Mason burning alive. 6 months later, Chris moves into her cousin's house. She sits on the windowsill sketching when suddenly she zones out. Dark thoughts creep in as she stares blankly at the ground. Thankfully, her cousin Rel snaps her out of it and offers to help unpack. At school, Rel gives Chris a tour. She shares a brief look with a girl named Ellie. Chris is assigned a locker with the word horse written on it. Rel explains that used to be Mason's nickname. Suddenly, Dean and his teammates surround Chris. They tell her she shouldn't use that locker out of respect. Dean's girlfriend, Grace, cuts in and says the school is old, so all lockers technically belong to dead people. Rel tries and fails to flirt with Grace. Dean realizes Chris is the new girl and claims he heard she got out of rehab after killing her dad. Ellie interrupts and calls Dean out for his cruelty. Dean keeps mocking Chris, so she kicks him in the groin. Mr. Craven gives detention to Chris, Dean, Grace, and Rel for causing a hallway disturbance. Ellie tries to defend Chris and gets detention too. Afterward, Ellie attempts to befriend Chris, but Chris says she doesn't need help. Ellie walks away, and Chris opens her locker. It's completely full of Mason's belongings, including the mysterious artifact. She hears whispers and decides to open it. Inside, she finds a strange whistle. Just as she's about to blow it, the bell rings, and she heads to class. That afternoon, Chris arrives late to detention. She puts her bag on the desk, and the artifact and whistle roll out. Dean thinks it's a pipe and tells Craven. Craven takes a closer look at the whistle and says it's some kind of musical instrument. He identifies the carved text on its base as Mayan. Craven reads the symbols aloud, and Grace types them into a translation website. The website reveals the words mean summon the dead. Interested in its historical value, Craven announces he's keeping the whistle. He points out that Chris found it in the locker on school property. He lets the teens leave early, but requires them to write an essay on ancient Mesoamerica. After the kids leave, Craven searches for antiques online. He confirms the whistle is very expensive. He's about to sell it when he hears whispers of his own name. The whispers convince him to blow the whistle. Craven does exactly that, and the window cracks. The act leaves him deeply unsettled. He puts the whistle down and confirms the sale on the website. Then he leaves the classroom. Outside, Grace invites everyone to meet up later. After the others leave, Rel tells Chris that what happened to her father wasn't her fault. Chris doesn't want to talk about it. Rel suddenly realizes he forgot something and rushes back to the classroom. He finds Craven's laptop still open, showing the antique prices. That gives him an idea. Meanwhile, a young man named Noah approaches Chris. He introduces himself as a youth pastor. Noah invites her to church while trying to sell her happy powder. He even offers a welcome sample. Rel returns and tries to push Noah away from his cousin. Noah easily overpowers Rel and throws him onto a car. Then Noah pulls out a knife. After talking about God, Noah tells Chris he'll always be there if she needs him. Then he leaves. Rel explains that Noah sells illegal substances to kids who attend his church. A year ago, a child died from an overdose. That evening, Craven discovers the artifact is empty. He searches everywhere for the whistle. Then he hears a noise and assumes it's the janitor. He steps into the corridor and sees a strange figure standing in the darkness. Suddenly, a hand touches his shoulder, startling him. It's only the janitor. The mysterious figure is gone, so Craven thinks he imagined it. He returns to the classroom and notices he can see his own breath. When he turns around, a creepy creature with weird goo dripping from its mouth is right there. The creature stabs Craven with both hands and squeezes his lungs until he dies. The janitor walks past the door but sees nothing. The same goo fills Craven's mouth as his body transforms into the creature. Then he collapses. At Grace's house, Rel reveals he stole the whistle. Chris refuses to hang out with the group, but can't stop staring at Ellie. Ellie injects her leg with diabetes medicine. Grace's brother Timmy tries to spy on the party, but Grace sends him to his room. Chris announces she's leaving, and Ellie tries to convince her to stay. Dean dares Grace to blow the whistle. When she does, everyone covers their ears because a painful noise echoes for several seconds. Once it stops, Dean tells everyone to be quiet because he hears something else. It's just an excuse to fart. Chris leaves, and Ellie follows her to invite her to the Harvest Festival. Ellie says it would be really nice if Chris came. Chris says yes, and Ellie leaves. Chris asks Rel if Ellie likes boys or girls, but Rel has no idea. At home, Chris tries to think of something to text Ellie. She isn't happy with any of her ideas. Suddenly, she sees someone standing in the tree outside her window. She gets very afraid. Then Rel startles her by entering the room. When she looks at the tree again, the figure is gone. Her phone pings with a text from Ellie. Chris panics because she accidentally sent a flirty text, but Ellie seems to like it. Rel steals the phone and sends a cute reply to help his cousin. After Dean leaves, Grace starts working on her essay. She keeps hearing noises and someone whispering her name. She assumes it's Timmy playing a prank. When she sees the light in her brother's room go out, she realizes he isn't the one making the noises. Suddenly, a creepy creature runs behind her. She hears her name whispered again. She follows the noise and checks behind furniture, but nothing is there. A creepy hand touches her, and she spins around. It's only Timmy, but Grace notices he's too far away to have touched her. The next morning, the principal gathers the students for an assembly. He informs them that Craven died of lung cancer. Ellie notices a girl in front of her shaking. Suddenly, the girl's neck breaks. She turns her head back around, revealing a creepy face, and whispers Ellie's name. Grace hands the whistle to Chris, and the distraction snaps Ellie out of it. The creepy girl is gone. After class, Ellie and Chris go to Mason's house. They think his family will want the whistle. They knock on the door and find it open. The girls go inside and hear old music playing. They notice antiques decorating the house. Suddenly, Mason's grandmother, Ivy, appears behind them. Without saying hello, she rants about the bag taking the house from her. She explains she traveled the world collecting antiques and studied how different cultures interact with death. On a table sit many medicine bottles. Chris tries to give Ivy the whistle, saying she found it in Mason's locker. Ivy replies that the whistle actually found Chris, just like it found Mason and herself. Years ago, Ivy got the whistle in a back alley in Guatemala. Since then, it has killed her daughter, her son-in-law, and her grandson. The exact translation of the markings is, summon the dead. When a person is born, so is their death. Everyone's death comes at its appointed time. Once someone hears the whistle, their death comes early and puts their body into the state of their originally planned death. Ivy gives the whistle back to Chris, saying she should never have taken it. That evening, the girls enter the hospital's record room. Ellie admits Mason's death was strange. He burned to death in a shower, yet they blamed a gas leak. They check his file and learn he was identified by his teeth because his body was extremely burned. Someone enters the room, so the girls hide behind cabinets. Mason's papers fall, and Chris grabs one. She reads that the body's bone structure suggests he was in his late 40s. That matches the whistle lore Ivy shared. This means Mason was destined to die in his 40s from a gas leak, and Craven was supposed to get cancer later. The girls need to warn the others. They sneak out before an employee finds the remaining paper on the floor. At the Harvest Festival, everyone wears costumes. Rel finds Grace and finally tells her he likes her. She gently turns him down, kisses his cheek, and goes to meet her boyfriend. Dean mocks Rel's costume, so Rel drinks to forget. Ellie and Chris arrive and Noah tries to bother them. He calls them a slur, so Ellie kicks him in the groin. Noah pulls out his knife, but Chris steps on his hand and steals it. She pokes his nose with the knife and mentions the child who overdosed. Noah claims he knows nothing. Chris cuts his nose, then tosses the knife away. Meanwhile, Dean and Grace split up inside the haunted maze. Employees in costumes keep startling them. Dean finds a wheel and spins it. The result says, "You decide your fate." In one of the maze quarters, Grace is shocked to find an old woman surrounded by ethereal light. Grace calls out to her, then walks away, only to find the same woman again. She runs and calls Dean for help, but he thinks she's being silly. Suddenly, the old woman startles Grace, causing her to fall and drop her phone. Grace picks up a shovel as the woman raises her arm to point behind her. Grace turns around and finds the woman again. She screams and hits her with the shovel. The woman collapses, and Grace also collapses. When Grace recovers, she touches her bleeding forehead. She realizes she has the same shovel injury as the creature. The old woman smiles and stands up by twisting her body. She starts chasing Grace, who runs as fast as she can. Dean worries because Grace won't answer her phone, so he goes looking for her. Grace panics when she stumbles into a dead end. Luckily, she finds a hidden tunnel in the wall. She starts crawling through it, but the old woman follows. The woman grabs Grace's ankle and stabs her thigh with a creepy finger. Then she inserts her hand into Grace's throat. Grace's body begins to change. After struggling, Grace breaks free and keeps moving until she reaches the center of the maze. Unfortunately, the old woman appears on a light pole and kisses Grace to finish the transformation. Before dying, Grace manages to pull a handle and ring the bell on the pole. By the time Dean arrives, Grace is nothing but a wrinkly old body. Meanwhile, Ellie and Chris find Rel winning a bear for Grace. He tells them the others are in the maze, so they all head there together. They hear the bell and rush to reunite with Dean. Later in the school gym, Dean refuses to accept that the body was Grace's. The girls share what Ivy told them. They both admit they felt death approaching. Dean is still in denial, so Rel calls him out for daring Grace to blow the whistle. Rel blames Dean for her death. An angry Dean pushes Rel down and mocks him for his crush. Rel runs away. Moments later, a very drunk Dean enters his bedroom through the window. He looks in the mirror and is shocked to see a man with severe bleeding injuries. He steps back and accidentally breaks his lamp. He rushes to turn on the main light, but the man disappears. His parents knock on the door, so Dean pretends he had a nightmare. His father scolds him for drinking and driving, saying it'll kill him someday. Meanwhile, at Chris's house, she tells Ellie that a year ago, she overdosed. Her dad took her to the hospital in his car. Unfortunately, a truck hit them on the way and killed her dad. Sometimes Chris thinks it should have been her. Ellie comforts her, then kisses her. The girls end up being intimate. On the roof, Rel sits under the rain, thinking about Grace. Suddenly, he sees blood on his hands and the teddy bear. Then he sees a body inside an industrial grinder. But it's all his imagination. The next day, Rel and the girls visit Ivy, who is sick in bed. She explains that to stop the curse, they must transfer their death to someone else. They must mark that person with their blood. Chris looks in the mirror and sees her death behind her, holding a needle. Her death disappears, and Ivy dies in bed. Afterward, the trio discusses what to do. Rel wants to pass his death, but Ellie sees it as murder and disagrees. They argue, and Rel ends up leaving alone. At home, Dean sees the news of Grace's death. He turns off the TV, still in denial. Suddenly, his door opens a little, and a creepy hand peeks into the room. He throws a chair at the door, getting his parents' attention. He rushes to close the door to keep them out and pushes furniture against it. The hangers in his closet move, and Dean's death comes out. It grabs his head and forces his body through the motions of a car crash. Injuries start appearing on his body, bones break, organs damage. By the time his parents burst into the room, they find his dead body collapsing on the ground. Meanwhile, Chris and Ellie look for Rel in his room, but he isn't there. They find pictures of him at the steel mill where he works. They also find a comic of an anti-hero killing a bad guy. Possibly a clue. Outside the church, Rel watches Noah say goodbye to the children. Once everyone is gone, Rel goes inside with a gun. He shoots a vase to prove he's serious. Suddenly, the church bell rings, distracting Rel. Noah jumps on him, trying to disarm him. They fight until Rel collapses, and Noah gets the gun. But when Noah tries to shoot, the gun doesn't work. Rel hits Noah with a tray and knocks him out. Later, Noah wakes up tied to a chair in the steel mill. Rel takes illegal substances from Noah's pocket and forces him to swallow them all. Rel then gets blood from his own hand and pulls out the whistle. The whistle gives his arm goosebumps. Just as Rel is about to mark Noah, the girls arrive to stop him. Rel keeps them back by pointing the gun at them. Noah starts begging for mercy, and combined with the girls' pleas, Rel pulls his arm back. Rel says everyone has to die once, which gives Chris an idea. Suddenly, Rel hears his death approaching. His injured arm is pulled by an invisible force, making him drop the gun. The girls grab him, trying to save him, but it's too late. His body starts to disintegrate because he was supposed to die in the grinder. When only half his body is left, it explodes. Noah passes out, and Chris has a breakdown. Ellie calms her down, reminding her that she had an idea. The girls rush to Ellie's car to get her hospital supplies as Chris explains her plan. Using insulin, they could stop a heart and bring it back to life with adrenaline. That would count as dying and drive their deaths away. They bring the supplies into the building, where Chris sees her death waiting. They set everything up and lock the door. Chris wants to save Ellie first, but Ellie surprises her by injecting insulin into Chris's arm. Chris realizes her death is depicting this exact moment. Chris's body falls into a tub of freezing water. Ellie keeps her there until her heart stops. As Chris dies, she apologizes to her family. Then Ellie pulls Chris out and injects her with adrenaline. She starts using the defibrillator. Chris almost wakes up, but her death appears in her subconscious and keeps her dead. A desperate Ellie begins CPR, but death keeps a tight grip on Chris. Noah wakes up and manages to escape the chair. He grabs the gun and starts hitting the door with a mace. Ellie's death also appears, confirming it was the girls he saw during the assembly. Noah opens a hole in the door and inserts his arm to open fire. He destroys the defibrillator and hurts Ellie. But that doesn't stop Ellie from repeating Chris's name. That gives Chris enough strength to finally push death away. Chris wakes up and finds Ellie having a seizure on the floor while her death watches. Noah comes inside and says God has a job for everyone. He touches Ellie's blood, and her death disappears. Then Noah's own death appears, and he opens fire. But every bullet hurts his body too. He collapses, and his death reaches him to kill him. Chris embraces Ellie as the camera reveals that a bullet destroyed the whistle. 3 months later, Chris sometimes thinks she sees her death, but she learns to live happily thanks to her relationship with Ellie. Meanwhile, another girl finds the artifact in her locker. During assembly, the girl pulls out the whistle and blows it. Thanks for watching. Everyone now channel your focus and strike that subscribe button just like how I unleashed the power of Chidori. Whistle, coming in 2025, holds secrets and dangers far darker than any jutsu I've ever faced. Stay sharp, keep your guard up, and don't miss what comes next.